Hello and welcome to the CRM Zen Show, where we talk about all things Zoho. This is episode 133, YouTube for You Too. Recorded on Friday, February 12th, 2021 from Zenata Consulting. I'm Brett Martin.
And I'm Tyler Colt, and let's get right on into the show.
Yeah, so as always, we'll start with some events coming up. We are doing next Tuesday our webinar on Zoho CRM. It's overview and best practices, and we're also going to cover some of the new stuff that happened in 2021, some new stuff we discovered that wasn't new, that was laying around in the CRM last year. So basically everything that happened last year in the CRM, and then just the general overview. So it'll be very basic at the beginning, and then we'll sprinkle in some other stuff that may be of interest. And on our events page over on crmzen.com, we're keeping it up to date. It looks like we've got an email marketing basics webinar coming up, and it looks like there's going to be a projects web or a survey webinar on multiple ways to collect responses through survey, another email campaign basics. So things are heating up. So check that out. Find out all the new stuff that is happening over there. And with that, let's dive straight on into the news. We'll start with Zoho Social. A big update this week, where they basically added in YouTube. And you don't really want, you can now post directly out of Zoho Social to YouTube, but you probably are going to want to just post to YouTube anyway. But the reporting and tracking look really good. You can now actually create RSS feeds that you pull in. You've got a media library that you never had before, believe it or not, where you can have all of your assets and directly pull them in. There's a cloud picker as well. It's got LinkedIn lead generation. It always had Facebook lead generation. Now it has LinkedIn lead generation. So directly into Zoho Social, and from Zoho Social into the CRM. And if you get their unlimited plan, you can have unlimited brands. But a lot going on here.
Yeah, kind of big updates across the board. I mean, I know that the YouTube kind of the big story there, just being able to post and manage. Do you know if you're able to respond to YouTube comments yet inside of Zoho Social? Is it going that level, or is it just the tracking around videos?
Well, you can respond to all of the other comments that are there. So I would think that you would be able to.
If not now, then probably soon.
Yeah, let's see here. Let's just go to our Zoho Social site. And because I know we've actually integrated it. So if we go into messages, pulled in a Facebook message.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like it's an added brand here on the messages side. Really interesting though on the reporting. So, you kind of go in and so if you go to bring in YouTube, it's, total subscribers, we're averaging 5 new subscribers per day. It's giving you all kinds of super nice metrics, overall engagement. You can look at your overall audience now. They've done some nice there. Post by engagement and kind of driving into that. So this is some stuff that, your overall video performance, how you're doing as you're going through. So, and the countries came in now. So that's pretty good. We got, where your views are coming from. Broken down pretty this wasn't there yesterday, so this is now populated over time.
Very cool.
Yeah, I gotta say, looks like we're getting this stuff. Look, what are these? Just I wonder what that is. That's interesting.
It's like
anyway,
playback location.
yeah, so they've got some cool stuff. I mean, I'm pretty stoked about it. And there's also on the, when you look at the newsletter, will tell you how to connect it and how to get the whole thing all dialed in and add it to your brand. But after looking at this was kind of a big missing feature. And over in our resource library, this kind of moved Zoho Social from the maybe list into the solid yes. They basically have kind of done everything they needed to do now with this last really big fix. So.
Yeah, and it's awesome to see. We use Zoho Social internally, and more we are seeing people adopt it, especially if you're using the CRM. Just being able to connect things together. I think, the LinkedIn integration is really slick too, because more and more we see that as a big prospecting platform. So definitely a good integration to have.
Yeah, and I think for business to business, which is, mostly what we deal in, you're probably better off in LinkedIn than you are over in Facebook, I would say, across the board. I ran a marketing company for several years, and if you were to rank them in order, you kind of really want to spend, depending on where you're at, you basically want to max out your price per lead in Google Ads first. So, you know, if you're starting off at 510, what you end up looking at is like your conversion rate and your cost, like for a Facebook and a LinkedIn, is usually in the 50s to 70s, 80s dollars per conversion is what you're paying there. So you basically just want to spend on YouTube until you kind of get up to that level, which takes a lot. But anyway, or to spend on, I should say, Google Ads before you get up there. But all right. And in more news, the CRM got some nice little updates here, some custom views and more.
Yes, kind of a few things around this. You know, you're actually able to share records to all users now a little quicker than before, rather than having to actually, you know, choose each of the users or roles. It's just a nice little usability update there. You can also notify people when things have been shared, you know, directly through the feeds inside of the CRM, which I think are kind of an underused little feature there that kind of rolls up all the activities. A nice one here as well is being able to lock a custom view. So if you're going to create and deploy a handful of different custom views out to the team, you might make some intentional design or filtering decisions that you don't want people to just be able to change. So now you're actually able to lock that and say, hey, I want to share this to everybody, but that doesn't mean that they can actually edit it. And last but not least, portal users are now able to access web tabs in the CRM. So, you know, a web tab is basically an embedded web page that you can just drop in as one of your tabs in the CRM. So definitely a good one to have there.
Yeah, and not last but not least, the last and not least is you can now remove some system defined fields. Exchange rate and currency can now be removed from the layout. That's just huge.
Yep.
It's just, you know, we always have to move them down to the bottom and like kind of a record data field. Very few people use those fields.
Yeah, there's one little note on this that I will highlight is those fields can only be removed if there's no custom currency fields in that given module. So, you know, and that's honestly fine because then you can remove them from leads, contacts, probably accounts, unless you have like a sales total or something like that. So you're definitely able to remove them in the bulk of modules, but some of them, you know, if you're working in a deal and maybe you have, you know, invoice payments or something like that as a custom field, you may not be able to remove them right now.
Yeah, and on this last one, I've had one request here. Sharing contacts is great. Man, the ability to bulk share contacts would just be fantastic. To be able to make a custom view, select all, and then mass share with somebody, that would sure fix a whole lot of things as well. So, but this is a good, really good start. And also on the CRM side, they're officially announcing motivators. So my guess is this must have now officially rolled out to everybody. And you've spent a lot of time playing with this.
Yeah, we spent a decent amount of time playing with this. It's kind of a replacement for the previous standalone product motivator, except it's just built directly inside of the CRM. So far, so good. You know, the TV views aren't quite as pretty as they used to be in the old motivator application, but the UI for setting all this stuff up is much better than it used to be. It's way easier to use. So I think over time, they'll probably continue to build some of the visuals in this, and I think it'll be a great replacement.
Yeah, I don't understand. I know there had to be a reason for it. The standalone app was kind of nice, but this is, I guess, it really only pulled from CRM anyway, didn't it? The standalone motivator app.
Yeah, it was just CRM.
Yeah, so this is nice. The TV channels are nice. It's basically, you know, I'm glad they did this. I'm not sure if this was their original intent when they decided to deprecate motivator. I think maybe it might have been, you know, that there was maybe all the backlash that they got on this maybe caused them to want to go ahead.
Because it was delayed. That deprecation was delayed a suspiciously long time after the initial announcement. So it might have been giving them a little more leeway to work on this product as a good replacement.
Yeah. All righty. And well, the remote, I guess I deleted that one, but we don't need it. Basically the remote sales office, which was free. So during the pandemic, basically Zoho rolled out this entire remote sales office thing, and it was kind of nice. It what did it have in it? It had Sales IQ. They give me the names here. I can't remember what was in it.
It's a handful of the different applications.
Looks like Showtime will not be in it anymore. Anyway, it was nice. I think it gave you click and meeting, right? and a couple of those things, and
kind of the collaboration tools.
Yeah, they gave it away for free. And, for those people who were had never worked from home and needed to have those kind of things, it was a nice little bundle of tools all the way around. And wow, I guess I must have missed doing an entire slide deck here. Okay, that's right. And then it looks like WorkDrive has, what have they done? Since I didn't load these up.
Yeah, they basically just beefed up the standard user profile, a little more of the standard subscription. So they're increasing storage limits, or adding team folders, more of the access controls, basically just unlimiting some of the stuff that previously wasn't available for standard and professional users. So if you are on one of those, non-enterprise licenses, you're now getting access to a lot of this stuff that previously, you didn't just have under the hood. So overall, great updates here. Good to see. Some of the stuff is, pretty nice to have, even if you're using it at kind of a light level where you don't need all the features, but things like team folders, external sharing, right? Those are useful regardless of how you're touching this application.
Yeah, and I get it now. So this is on the Zoho Workplace, which is the bundle, which includes
where you get
Mail
the
and all the Office apps. Yeah. Right. That's a good, it's a nice little pickup there. And then this was interesting. So we're deprecating some telephony extensions. Ozone Tel, which is interesting because that Ozone Tel's cuckoo. So that's interesting. Well, that was actually a very good application. We've got some people that were using that. The interesting thing about that integration is that it was super powerful, allowed you to do things like, a person could press star for a call back and be placed in a new queue next online, and automatic, like things that a lot of them don't do. Ring IO, that's interesting as well. So that is, I guess we might have to reach out to a couple people here who may now have things that are no longer going to be supported. That's kind of interesting. And
that is sneaking up, right? So that's coming out March 1st is when support will cease for those. So, it's interesting. Feels like every week or two we see a new telephony service. Whether it's supported by Zoho or not, it feels like there is just an infinite amount of these different options when you're looking at voice over IP. So if you are using one of these, hopefully it'll be a smooth transition to another product, but one that you'll probably need to start looking into, as these are going to stop on March 1st.
Yep. And over on the community a couple of days ago, they posted the quick action keyboard shortcuts for Zoho Projects. It was interesting to put these up. I think they've been around for a while.
They've been around. Yeah, these have been around here.
Yeah, but it's nice to find. Now that I'm totally using Zoho Mail, I needed to figure out what all the keyboard shortcuts were, and we probably could write an entire article like, here's all the shortcuts for all the apps, because if you're a power user, man, this allows you to move around really, really quickly.
Yeah, I found these on accident, actually. I accidentally hit T, which is the add task or keyboard shortcut inside of Projects, and it popped up, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. So I hit M, and that added a milestone. So it's they're all pretty reasonable, right? If you hit P, you're adding a project. So they're pretty much what you would expect. And yeah, it's just much faster, right? To note things down without having to click, right? And find that add task button.
Yeah. And I like the combos, them using Z+, that's Zoho Plus, I'm assuming, right? It's kind of nice. So anyway, there are a whole lot of those. So if you're using, basically, no matter what Zoho app you're using, you pretty much have a whole bunch of keyboard shortcuts you can get to. All right, and moving on, we have the usual financial updates for this year. So inventory and books got some nice updates. You've got a global thing on, you can now assign default purchase tax to items, which I think is kind of nice. That's always been a problem. Exant search for a sales return. This is interesting. You can now print and download shipment labels in bulk. It's kind of big.
Yeah, it's a big time saver there.
Yeah. Just kind of minor things, filtering. There's not a whole lot here that really jumped out. They're just nice little tweaks along the way here.
Yeah, I'd love I think there's definitely some more to be done around those packages. Recently I've been digging into the actual usage of those packages and kind of the workflow that you can build around them. And I will say there are a couple little hiccups. A few to be aware of if you're kind of thinking about inventory is, in that packages view, you can't actually sort or filter based on the state or area that the package is going to go to. It's just not available as, one of those options. It's kind of the same with products. Like if I'm looking at a list of sales orders, I can actually pull a filter and say, show me sales orders that contain widget A. And, if you're going to bulk ship a bunch of packages, you're probably going to do that same thing, right? I'm going to go to the bin that's got all of product A, and I'm going to, fulfill all the packages that are purchasing that. And currently those things are just not quite supported. There are some automations you can do to work around them, adding a custom field for the state. And then every time a package is created, we're triggering a function to go and get it, and then you're creating a view basically for every single state because you can't filter on the fly. So a couple little oddball things. It's good to see they're rolling out a ton of updates. The product's definitely going in the right direction. There's a lot of cool stuff you can do there, but just a couple things to be aware of with packages is they don't have all the features that, the other modules within books or inventory have.
Yeah, I think for most people doing an ERP type solution, you need to hang on a little bit before you roll out Zoho inventory.
Yeah, if you've got kind of have the simple stuff, right? If you've got 20, 30 vendors, you're buying products, you're selling those products on a markup, you're kind of shipping them first in, first out, inventory is going to work great. But it's when you start to try to build out those custom workflows, like, hey, we don't ship first in, first out. We actually batch by state, and all of a sudden now there's kind of a lift of custom dev work to allow for that.
Which in most big ERP systems, it's just standard.
It's just there.
It's just there. It's just built in, ready to go. So, and also, I would say any sort of kitting, if you've, it's really, really good for finished goods.
Yeah.
That works on a lot of levels. All right. And over in Zoho Books, we actually already talked about this. This is new in February, but I think we got this last week. They rolled out this Sure Payroll integration. It is actually owned by Paychex. I don't know how we're going to try this out. It's because
I'll take an extra paycheck for the week if we got to try it out.
I am going to take a look at it though, because if it handles 1099s, if it handles W-2s, it handles all these other things, and it writes it all back into books and does all the journal entries for you, it saves probably, 20 minutes of payroll of kind of, importing the journal entries.
Yeah. It's a big, I think, kind of missing spot inside of Zoho. You know what I mean? If you look at like that whole process, right? You've got Zoho people. So you can have your people check in and check out and schedule their shifts, and all of their time, and currently there's just no plugin to actually spit that out into a payroll platform, right? So, and there's workarounds. For one of our clients, we've basically formatted an analytics report that pops out that's just ready to be imported. So, there are these workarounds and, solutions that you can build, but having something that you could just plug in would be great. I think the thing that we'll need to dig into on Sure Payroll is, where do those timesheet entries come from, right? Does it have to be a books timesheet, or do you connect in from Zoho people, or, what are some of the options there? Because if there's a solution around it, it'd be just great.
Yeah. Yeah. I kind of wish Zoho would give up on payroll. I really do.
Just build an integration T-sheets.
Yeah. Come on. ADP, Paychex, all the big ones that are out there. Yeah.
T-sheets, I will say T-sheets is actually supported in Flow. And T-sheets you can hit in Flow. We were actually talking to a potential customer the other day around that. So I'd be interested to explore that a little bit. Can we on certain triggers in Zoho actually log things properly over into T-sheets and then kind of build our own little trigger-based integration there? But gosh, it'd be nice if you could just say, spit out all these timesheets into T-sheets or ADP or, what have you.
Well, T-sheets writes into QuickBooks, and then it's QuickBooks payroll that T-sheets is looking after, right? Yeah. So, and let's see what other things we had. You can, India, you can now do a quarterly return monthly payment scheme. I don't know what that means, but that's neat. And now you have branches in Zoho Books. That's really interesting.
And this is for the global version here. So including global, United Arab Emirates, some of those. I don't think this is quite US yet, but hopefully soon.
Well, what does global mean then? Let's define it.
Global is separate than US.
Are we not US on this globe?
Yeah. Yeah. Interestingly enough, US actually has its own designation for Zoho Books.
Oh man, it's got a lot of new designations lately. All right.
Yeah.
And then
It's all the different tax setups. I'm sure there's just, hard to make one accounting suite work for every different, every different country that you could be doing it in.
yep, and then some tighter integration over with inventory. You can introduce brand and manufacturer fields for line items in the template section. That's nice.
That is nice.
That is really nice. All righty. And moving on, what do we have next? Zoho People got some February updates. And it's not here. It's over in their newsletter. Let's take a look. I think we probably covered all of this. By the way, Zoho's doing a great job with these newsletters. They are.
Yeah, Zoho People really does. I wish they did this for every app, man, because they do a really good job over at Zoho People with putting out this type of content. Everything from product updates to blogs. I mean, it's basically a little mini CRM Zen show just for Zoho People.
Yeah, it is. So I don't see anything here that we haven't already covered, though.
Yeah, a couple different things. I mean, a few little minor updates to the continuous review process. One of the things Zoho People is building out a lot is that employee review and progress towards goals and things like that. Another one around setting. It's kind of a bug fix, honestly. You can weight certain parameters, right? When you're doing goal tracking, and previously you could weight them above 100%. So now they basically just set a max on that to make sure that it doesn't kind of error out when you try to throw those together. Then lastly, just a minor one. If you are running anything through their little Zoho People LMS, course admins can now download completion certificates for anyone who's learning underneath them. Just kind of a couple little minor updates there. I'm sure things that people asked for that they've jumped in and added.
And it looks like they're going to add a questionnaire module in the performance management system shortly, and on-duty functionality in the attendance management system. So they're making some enhancements to those shortly. So kudos to Zoho People. All right, and moving on to mobile news. We've kind of left this section out of the show lately because there just has only been like one story, so we've just dropped it into news. But this week, quite a few things. So Zoho Projects for iOS now supports Gantt charts. I'm probably would only want to use this on an iPad, I would think, but
you're going to be a little squeezed if you're on my iPhone 6. I'll tell you that. Definitely not for my phone, but probably a good one to have. Yeah, I mean, with Zoho Projects, it's so based on that cascade and dependencies, that having Gantt chart is pretty core. Anywhere you're looking at Zoho Projects, you probably want to see a Gantt chart. So definitely nice to have, even if it's a little small on your phone.
Yeah, and Zoho Desk for Android now supports the accounts module, which I would think you'd want to have. It's interesting. I did not know that was missing. So
yeah, one of those ones you would assume is there. Basically,
I bet you they developed this, they forgot all about it.
So accounts over in Zoho Desk are basically the companies that all your contacts work at. So previously, you couldn't just view all the list of companies inside of Zoho Desk, and now they've pulled that in. So definitely a good one to have.
Yeah, and then Zoho Mail for iOS got some really nice updates. Actually, the meeting link is now displayed in an event email. That was crazy important for them to do that. And I don't think that's about it.
Just a quick one there.
Just a quick little update there. Loving Zoho Mail, baby. I tell you, on the mobile side, I'm using it mobile. I'm using it desktop. Interesting, though. We're in this debate as we talk about Zoho Mail and moving, and Greg and I were on a call. We probably spent about 30 minutes trying to figure out the pros and cons, because you got the calendaring thing, and I can kind of live in calendaring. And there's a super nice plugin in the CRM that will send out the invite and automatically put Zoom into it when you're sending an invite out of the CRM. So you could get around the Zoom thing that way. But there are just, you don't have the whole kind of the Calendly parts, kind of the big thing that's missing.
Yeah.
But guess what? If you're using Zoho Mail as an IMAP client, you have no access to filters.
Oh, no.
I know. You can't filter any messages, which I really don't understand as to
kind of a game breaker for iMapping, to be honest with you. I mean, I can't imagine looking at my inbox without all the filters. have set up, it'd be, pardon my French, but hellish to dive into my inbox without it being filtered up and categorized, right?
So I'm there and I'm like, okay, now it's time to rebuild all my filters, right? If this is going to happen. But no, filters are only available if Zoho Mail is actually the actual MX records are sent and you're running Zoho Mail. So that is a bit painful there as well. And let us never forget Bigin. We haven't heard about this in a while, but contact name will now be displayed in a deal Kanban card. Again, probably something you needed to see. So if you might want to know who the contact name is. So small little tweaks to a whole bunch of Zoho applications here. Also in Bigin, modules renamed on the web will now sync with the Bigin app, which is
I thought that was their type of thing.
Yeah.
This is a big one because oftentimes the rename that I always see is accounts gets renamed into companies, right? And maybe contacts become clients or something like that. And now that'll actually propagate over to the mobile app. So definitely a good one there.
Yep. And, I actually did some rejiggering of our CRM the other day in deals and was rearranging some stages and pipelines and all that kind of stuff. And I went in last night, I was on my iPhone and went into the CRM and it was all there. And that used to be something you had to force an update. You basically had to go in and force a resync to bring all that stuff in.
Yeah. Like the full fetch. Yeah.
You had to do a full fetch, but they're being proactive about that because everything was just nicely pushed over. So pretty happy about that. All right, Tyler. And that brings us to our implementation of the week. What do we got?
Yes, this is one that kind of ties in some of the benefits of having, your CRM and your marketing platform all kind of in the same house. So this is basically assigning contacts to campaign workflows, which are, their drips or journeys or sequences, right? Those multiple email chains that go out. But we're actually basing it off of where a contact is at in their deal stage. Oftentimes, and this is one that depends on the client if it's really necessary. But, the client we're working with basically just had a long deal pipeline. These weren't deals that get closed in 2 weeks. These are deals that get opened up and, you're doing a use case analysis. They're diving in internally. You might go weeks without talking to one of these people directly, right? And that sale can take a long time. And the challenge that the customer is having is basically that they want to drip out some of these workflows, these emails to keep people engaged when they're in that deal flow. But the challenge they're bumping into is that by default, the contacts don't know what deal stage they're in. It's not actually stored in a field in the contacts where I could then set up my view and pull them into a mailing list to get those workflows. So basically we set up a little function where, anytime that a deal is created or edited, it's basically writing that deal stage up to the contact and just syncing it through the process. And then once we have all that written up, we just create our custom views like we always do and sync those directly into the workflows that make sense based on what stage in the sale they're at. A couple little additions here. We have to do a little custom work to make sure people get removed from those mailing lists once you win or lose the deal. But other than that, pretty straightforward, but definitely one that helps, especially if you've got that kind of longer deal flow. Like for us at Zanata, probably wouldn't need something like this because generally it's within a week or two and we're having a meeting or two and everything's kind of scheduled out. But, some of those sales don't happen that fast. You might be waiting on budget. You might be waiting on review or compliance. So if you're in that type of space, definitely something to think about that you actually can campaign to someone based on where they're at in your deal flow. It doesn't have to be, a specific field that you're going to actually update in the contact.
That's absolutely great.
Yeah, and it's kind of a quick one too to set up. Some of our implementations are big builds, that take me and a couple cups of tea, a long time to set up and dial in. But this one's actually not bad at all. It's a quick little workflow, maybe 20 lines of code, and you're off to the races once those syncs are set up.
So on this same kind of thing, talking about deals and flow, slightly different thing here, but we talk about deal stages. I was thinking about this the other day. historically, whenever we're talking to somebody, if you look at your overall pipeline, you'll say, great, if they're at this stage, we have a 10% chance of closing. And if they get to this stage, we're going to have a 20% chance of closing. And, it's always said is we really won't know that until a certain amount of time goes by, right? And I'm wondering, could we now, do you think, or do you get the data and analytics? Can you pull deals by stage and all of the time they sat in each stage and when they bailed out? Because I'm wondering if we could create an analytics report that would actually give the real numbers. If it gets this stage, 47% of them close. You're basically saying, because when they go to close lost, you'd have to look anything that went from this to close lost, right? This to close lost.
So there's two ways to do it. One of them is the better way, but it only works for deals moving forward unless you have some data stored. So there's basically two ways.
I'm talking historical. Do a 1 year look back.
Yeah,
right?
the one if you implemented, it depends on when you implemented it. But let's say we were doing this right now, nothing's built in the system. What you would do is look at stage history inside of a deal or opportunity. It's actually tracking any time that a deal enters or exits a stage, right? And that particular history list is actually accessible in analytics. It's the only one. So like lead status history, nope, that does not pull in analytics. Deal stage does, but I will say it requires some workup. This is something that does take a couple SQL tables to basically get what you would do is create a table for each stage and then all the deals that have been in that stage, and then do some comparative analysis between tables. The alternative way and the easier way, if you're setting this up from scratch now, is anytime that a deal hits a stage, you just timestamp it. I do this all the time for clients. You make a little section called timeline info, and every stage has a date field. And when you hit it, it hits that date. And if you do it that way, I will say that the analytics workup is much easier than reading from the related table. So it's all doable regardless of how you're going to set it up. But, if there's something that anyone listening is thinking about setting up, I would try to build that timeline info now and do it that way, because it's just going to make your life a lot easier than trying to get those SQL tables and custom data structure over in analytics.
Yeah, it's just kind of a random thing that occurred, because it seems like we're always talking about clients, hey, pay attention to this, do this, but there's no real automation around that, right? Like, at the end of the day, it would almost be it should be a report you should be able to run, right? That would be, where's my drop-offs, what happened, but interesting. Yeah, and I kind of agree, in the chat room, Mark's saying, sales predictions are too optimistic, and I agree. You sit there and you look at that. It's like, hey, you'll see companies where it's at 90% and it was proposal requested or something, right? And there's the big one. Proposals, where most companies should measure it is, a couple of things. How many people died right after the demo? Tells you that maybe, your demo's not very compelling. And how many people died once they actually got a contract from you, kind of thing, and I think those are the big ones you want to look at. And from there, you can get a really good idea of maybe what your actual future projected revenue can be. So,
yeah. And Mark in the chat also threw one in that a lot of companies are basing it on stage, which, can be a good idea, but can also be kind of bad, because you're assuming that every deal that requested a proposal is similarly likely to close, which isn't always the case, right? I mean, you come out of that demo conversation and someone could be, singing your praises, I want the proposal, or they could come out of that and be like, yeah, sure, send me your proposal, right? And those are really, really different. So he kind of mentions that, you can basically, not using the standard functionality, but you can just have like a percentage field that the sales team estimates, and, you can build it off of that instead. And they both have their pros and cons.
Yeah. And you never know. I have had this is awesome, send me the proposal, we're going to sign this week. You never hear from them again. Like, yeah, all right, send it to me. And then they sign, and, you don't know. All right, let's move on to this week's reads. This is our YouTube episode. A couple of reasons around it. So not only did they have the massive update to Zoho Social, but we're going to talk about our app of the week in a minute. Is also related to YouTube. And this is so I was kind of hunting for articles on YouTube, and You laughing at what I wrote there, Tyler? You like
I
that?
am. I'm laughing at
Yeah.
your paraphrase.
Yeah. To paraphrase the Buggles, video may have killed the radio star, but it can make your business soar. And I think star and soar kind of rhymed it.
Close
I
enough.
think I was onto something there. Well, if I was to, do spoken word, I think I could make that totally go. Video may have killed the radio star, but it can make your business soar. Soar like 1,000 points of light across this great land of ours. No?
There's the English major coming back in there.
There you go, baby. But nice article by a gentleman by Max Thorpe. He works for a company called WeVideo. He's their director of marketing over there, I believe. And WeVideo is an online video editor, and of course, they're writing content for themselves. They did a really good job because on a YouTube search, man, this is one of those featured articles that came up like ours, where ours comes up on Zoho Tips. This one came up on YouTube, and it tells you why you should do it. And I will tell you, you should do it. If you can come up with really good, compelling video content, and Tyler and I will tell you, it is not easy, and it is a slog, and it requires, hundreds and hundreds of hours of work, if not thousands of hours of work over the course of a year to do it. It really does drive business. I think this week alone, I probably had no less than 10 meetings with people where the first thing I was asked is, "Hey, how'd you hear about us?" And historically, it's always been, I searched on Google Ads, I searched for Google and you came up at the top. This was, I saw you on YouTube. I saw you on YouTube. I love your stuff. And if you can come up with super, super compelling content, it will reach people. So, and you reach your target audience. That's what I like about this, right? I mean, you're going for that specific audience because the only people that are going to look for you are people that are in your target audience.
Yeah. The interesting thing that it throws in here that makes sense, but I just hadn't thought about it, is YouTube is the second most popular search engine in the world, only behind Google. So when people are and when you search Google likes to put video into your search responses. So there's a lot of fortuitous visibility that you get just by posting out there on a YouTube. There's a quick question around YouTube that I got put in the chat. Basically saying, YouTube seems to trail off into your competition after you view your video, which can be true. I mean, there are other people that make Zoho content on YouTube, and I'm sure they show up and are recommended. I would say just don't even worry about that. Content is not a competitive game. We make webinars, but we'll host a Zoho webinar, or we'll refer people to a webinar done by another partner. It's more of a long strategy. You're not trying to close every individual person who sees your content. It's really just about putting it out there, making it free and searchable and usable. And at some point, someone's going to see your video and then click to a competitor's video and go with your competitor. It's going to happen. But that same thing could happen in the reverse, right? Where someone searches for your competitor and finds your content. So it's really just about making it useful and putting it out there. And try not to view it as competing against other people's content, because there's just so much, and people have a lot of time in the day. They can watch a couple videos on YouTube,
And SEOing of your YouTube videos is so
really big.
So you just don't post it and go, "Hey, here's this video." I mean, you need to write an article just like you would a blog post, and you've got to totally SEO, and we'll talk about some cool stuff around that. So a shout out to this WeVideo company. I've never heard of them before, but they've got a pretty nice online video editor. I mean, which just shows you the power, man. I mean, this is, I'd love to see how this works, because it's, normally you're using up a lot of cycles usually to do some video editing. All right. And with that, let's move on to what is new on Zenata. We've got some self-serving stuff here a little bit. While you'll fall in love with a CRM health check, we happen to do health checks over here. So there's a nice article on really trying to keep all of your stuff up to date. If you're not familiar with a health check, it's basically once a month going through and looking at all your leads and all your accounts and all your contacts and making sure there's no dupes and making sure that the case is proper. It seems that, they seem to be getting sloppier, but first names all lowercase, first names all uppercase. It's horrible, especially when you're going to do campaigns and marketing.
That's the thing. Those things don't matter until they do, right? It doesn't matter that one of your reps capitalizes all the letters of everyone's name until you run a campaign that merges in their first name. right? And now it's like, hi, John, and you're yelling at the people that you're mailing. So it's one of those things. It doesn't matter till it does. It's like phone number formatting. It doesn't matter until you want to install voice over IP. And then all of a sudden the format does kind of matter.
And it's
So
cleaning all that stuff up, and just keeping it. And if you're on top of it every month and you dedupe and you keep everything clean and you look at also deals, we talked about deals earlier. You got, if you've got a close date on a deal and it's 3 weeks ago, you haven't touched the deal. You haven't updated the deal. There's a lot of
what happened, right?
Yeah. So it's basically like, hey, here's every once a month. It's like, here's all the things you need to look at. Here's what's happening, and all of that kind of stuff.
And that's a big one too. I mean, the thing with that, I see that a lot, honestly, is like leads and deals that don't get marked either dead or lost. And if you're not marking them that way, you're losing out on a big reporting opportunity, right? Yep. You could look at leads by lead source and you'd see, oh, we have 1,000 open leads from this source. But in reality, most of those are actually dead or gone. And that lead source is worse than it appears, right? Or you could pull that same report on deals, right? Yep. So these things actually do kind of add up, especially when you get into reporting down the line.
Yeah, and this is an actual health check where we put it was for us in here, but it wasn't. But I mean, this is real. If you're looking at us on the video here, you had, in the deal pipeline, 236 open deals and 35 deals didn't have a closing date. 174 deals had closing date that was in the past. This was a real client first time around, kind of taking a look at their stuff. So it's good. It's worth taking a look at. Hey, and Wayne found another resource guide, and wow. I love this. Yep, it's on multi-channel CRM. If you're not familiar with the multi-channel CRM, it's basically, if a lot of people are selling directly to one person. A lot of people are selling B2B. So that would be two channels, right? If you're going B2C, you're going B2B. Oftentimes you go through a distribution channel. You'd be surprised the number of touches that you have kind of to make things work. So if you're, maybe let's say I'm Dell Computers. Most of the time, you're not buying directly from Dell. You might if you're B2C, but B2B, they're putting those rack mounts into like an Ingram Micro or a Tech Data. And then that is being purchased by a large, systems integrator who's buying it, who's then delivering it to the end user customer and installing it at that point in time. So you've got all of these little touch points along the way. And this has got some really good touch points on how to build a multi-channel CRM. So
yeah, I think one of the big benefits with Zoho is just that it's so customizable. A common one that we've set up in the past is, you've got a deal flow for actually selling the product, and then you've got a totally different deal flow for onboarding a new vendor. So you can actually just create a deal and choose this is a sale or this is like a vendor contract. Right. And then those future sales, you can actually assign them to one of those vendors who you onboarded in that same process. So it's a lot of power when you're able to customize with Zoho.
Yeah, perfectly. All right. And then we have a new case study on one of our favorite clients, Pediatric Head Shape Clinic. These are great guys. It's a medical facility. And anyway, we have done so much customization for them. So a nice little case study here. And I want to shout out to
this was
guys.
An interesting one. Definitely a good one to check out. Is one of those, implementations that kind of started out as fixing a couple hot button items and then turned into basically like a full integration upstream with their, parent company and supplier. And really just so much is done there. Can't say enough really how awesome this build turned out. So definitely one that's worth checking out.
And it's always nice when they're just such really nice people to work with. Just Absolutely. Great people over there. So thanks for doing that case study with us. We appreciate it. All right. And now our application of the week. So Wayne over in marketing basically said, hey, I need this application called TubeBuddy. It is cheap. It is absolutely killer amazing. This will bulk processing of videos, templates, promotion tools, analytics like you've never seen before on YouTube. I'll tell you one of the coolest things that he was showing me with this application. We've now got, I don't know, 300-400 videos up or something like that.
Something like
and
that.
They're all SEO'd. And oftentimes you'll do a video and you'll want to say, hey, be sure to check out our webinar on this day. Well, that's stale after a while. So he actually went through all of the videos and he cut and pasted the new text for the new our webinar that's going to be on Tuesday. And now all he has to do going forward in TubeBuddy is say, go through all our videos, replace this text with this text. And it will automatically update everything in there. So if you wanted to add, you want to add some SEO, you want to add some paragraph, you can basically do bulk updates of all your videos. You can do bulk downloads, processing. It's
just $15 a month.
Super cheap, I think, right? If we look at the overall pricing, it wasn't much. I want to say, I don't know.
I guess that's if you're annual, you're down at about $15 a month for the standard plan.
Yeah, if you're paying it monthly, it's $19 a month. And we might have bought the star plan. We probably should get the legend. It looks like it's got some A/B testing, which would be really, really interesting.
I'd like to nerd out with that. I'll tell you what.
I know. Anyway, I hadn't heard of this tool before, and it does some just cool stuff, man. Just if you're on YouTube, this is worth checking out. All right, and that is going to bring us to our tip of the week. So Tyler, this is the second in our beginner's guide for campaigns.
And this one basically covers how to send out a campaign. We kind of walk through some of the best practices, some of the things to be aware of. It's kind of just a step-by-step. If you're new to using Zoho campaigns, I think it'll be a great guide. If you've been using it for a while, you might glean a thing or two, but it is mostly just on the basics of, walking through and actually, creating that email, defining your sender, building some content, picking a different list or segment that you want to send it to, and then scheduling it to go out. So it's, basically end to end on what you would actually do to get an email out the door.
Yeah, we must have been a little long-winded on this one. They're normally like 7 to 10 minutes. This is 17, but we covered everything all the way through to the send, even the submit part. And, when every single campaign you do has to be approved, and Zoho's really good about approving it. It was probably
quick.
A minute and a half, 2 minutes.
Yeah, it's super
quick. Yeah. I don't think you have to wait on this video. Hopefully that got cut out, but it's some good stuff. All right, and we've got a Q&A. We have a couple questions here. So Jessica in the chat rooms, new Zoho admin, do you have any recommendations for proper formatting that should be considered for phone numbers?
Yes. Just numbers.
Yes.
Just put numbers in the field. Zoho will present the phone number to you within parentheses. And so it'll be, parentheses 123 space 456 dash 7890. It'll actually display it that way when you put it in with just straight up numbers. And the benefit that you'll bump into down the line is if you do ever run an integration or, you plug in voice over IP and you need to use those numbers for anything. And that can be from matching a customer from another platform into Zoho. Maybe you're going to match on phone number, or you're going to plug in Twilio or, some of the more sensitive voice over IP systems. Some of them will take whatever format you got, but some of them really do work best if there's minimal formatting. This is oftentimes something that we actually just write a script to do. You can write a pretty quick little function that says, anytime a phone number is added, get that value and remove everything that's not a number and then put it back into the field. So there's a couple ways to automatically clean that up. But yeah, if you've got a choice, like if you're about to import a big spreadsheet and you've got phone numbers on there, I would say definitely just, find and replace all those different characters that aren't numbers just right out of there.
Yeah. And if you have to do international, it's interesting. So if you're using the campaigns, Zoho campaigns to send out SMS messages, it actually looks at the country. That's important. It actually looks at the country to determine the country code. So you've kind of got to get that dialed in. But if you're using international numbers and you're putting in +1, +52, those kind of things for click to call, that can kind of mess things up down the road, right?
Yeah.
On some of the other stuff. So I don't know if we have any good answers for that, other than maybe creating a secondary phone field for international, where you're not looking at that. Is it what's our best practice currently, Tyler?
Functions. You can actually go and get based on a country. You can go and query third-party databases and get the code. Jess, as well, any other things that you want to check each month? I would say like leads that haven't been touched in a certain period of time is a good thing to check every month. Deals past closing date, right? Because the thing with the deals and the closing dates, it drives forecasting. So you want any deal that's open still to be expected to close in the future so that you can ballpark out, expected revenue and things like that. Then I would say duplicates across the board, leads, contacts, accounts, all of those should be regularly checked for duplicates. Zoho has some tools that will actually do that en masse. It makes it pretty painless to do. But I would say those are like the big three. I mean, anything else, Brett? If you're using tasks, overdue tasks is a good one as well. Make sure people are doing those. And if they are doing them, that they're checking them off.
Yeah.
I think those would be the big ones off the top of my head.
Yep. And if you want, I mean, honestly, Jessica, just on our website, we actually have, there's a thing said health check, and you go there and there's the sheet of everything we check every month. If you
you could borrow some ideas.
Yeah. I mean, if you just go take a look at that, I think it's right there on the main page in the middle, right? Yeah. Boom, boom, boom. There it is. So we've got this health check page, and I mean, this is every single thing we check for. You can kind of run through that and take a look. Hopefully that'll give you some good ideas. All right, everybody. Hey, thanks so much for joining us. We really enjoy doing the show for you. If you'd like to reach out to us, you can head over to zenata.com or crmzen.com and drop us a line.
And on the website is where you'll find complete episodes as well as show notes with links to the stories we discussed today. As always, you can follow us on your favorite social media platforms and subscribe to us on your favorite podcast app, as well as on YouTube. We'll see you next Monday.